Hello everyone, Seth Mayo here, Curator of Astronomy for the Loman Planetarium at the Museum of Arts and Sciences. I'm back with you for another weekly update of our Sky Tonight. Hopefully you've been enjoying these so far. I've been having a blast putting these together, these remote versions of our Sky Tonight program that we usually hold in our Loman Planetarium. And so this session covers the week of March 30th through April 5th. So if you're out looking at the sky this week, covers that time frame. And as we've been doing in the past year, I'm using this wonderful piece of software called Stellarium. It's totally free. Anyone can download it, put it on your computer, look at the sky anytime you want from any place on Earth. And of course, we have it set to Daytona, or at least where our museum is located, right here in Central Florida. And even if you're not in this part of the world in Central Florida, if most places in the United States, or if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, this will cover what you can see from those places. We're about 30 degrees north latitude, so we have a good coverage of the northern sky, but also a little bit of the southern sky as well. So we can offer the sky from many places on Earth. So don't worry if you're not exactly in Central Florida. So let's get right to it for our sky this week. And as per tradition here, we like to start with our daytime sky and then move into the evening from there. So we're going to speed up time here, and as we do, it will look like the sun is moving here. Obviously, we are speeding up Earth's rotation, and as we do so, it makes it look like the sun is moving across the sky. Obviously not that fast unless something's completely wrong with your day, I always say. But we're simulating time here, so we can kind of speed it along as we like. We're going to slide to the west here, watch the sun set. Right now, the sun is setting in kind of the 7:40 time frame this week. And what's great is even during the daytime, at least at the beginning of this week, you'll have the moon fairly high in the sky, a crescent moon. So that'll be out even in the daytime hours, and then of course in the evening as well. So we will set the sun here. And what's been really great is something that looks like a really bright star in the west above the sun. I've already mentioned this the last couple weeks here. And this has been really good for the beginning of 2020, and that's this bright thing here. And that is the planet Venus, second planet from the sun, brightest planet you can see from Earth. And a good general rule of thumb is planets don't really twinkle like the stars do. Stars twinkle because of our atmosphere. Planets, the light from the planets is not affected as much because they're a lot closer to us than the stars at night. And so the planet's light doesn't really get shimmered as much. And so you don't get that twinkling effect. So you have these very steady, glowing kind of effect you see from the planets, especially Venus being as bright as it is. So Venus is great, and you'll find that still in the western part of the sky and visible even when there's still light from the sun. So let's continue moving on through time here, and eventually we'll get into the 8 o'clock hour, and a little after 8:30 is when it gets dark out, and here we have it here. So now we're looking at our lovely western part of our sky, and what's really great is Venus is actually getting close to one of my favorite things in the sky. We're going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see what I'm talking about here. So there's Venus, of course, but if you look right above it, we'll have this group of stars that we call Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters. It's a star cluster, and many people think it's the Little Dipper. I used to think this actually too, and it really does look like Little Dipper, but it's not officially what's considered Little Dipper. That's actually in the north, and the Little Dipper is actually a little bigger than this. This would be like an ultra tiny miniature dipper. But technically not what we call it. So again, Pleiades or Seven Sisters in Japan, it's called Subaru. Fun fact I like to throw out quite often. So a lot of different names for this cluster. But anyway, Venus is getting really close to it. But even better, if you wait through the rest of the week here, you'll notice that Venus will get closer and closer. So by Tuesday and then Wednesday, I'm moving ahead in time now, you'll find that Venus will get even closer, and then by Thursday get so close, and then on Friday basically overlap the cluster, and this is called a conjunction. When two or more objects get really close to each other in the sky, you have a conjunction, and this conjunction in particular is spectacular. We have Venus going right over this super famous star cluster. We'll zoom right into it, which is kind of a nice feature here. So there's Venus, and there's this bright cluster here. This is going to be a really awesome opportunity to take pictures of this, especially if you have a wide field, kind of view of this, or binoculars. Take a look at this with binoculars. This would be one of the best things to look at. And I know a lot of people have binoculars at home. So go out, take them out, and look at this conjunction going on of Venus and this star cluster here. That's going to be wonderful. I'm going to try to even take pictures of this too myself here, so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, so stay tuned for that cluster and that planet getting really close. And on that night on Friday, you can see them until about 10:30, even 11 o'clock, especially if you don't have much in your western horizon. You'll see them for longer. So that's a good opportunity to see a wonderful conjunction. Now I'll go back in time to kind of the beginning of the week here. Now, if you kind of notice, the moon is sort of moving across the sky towards the east, night to night, as it does. And at the beginning of this week, the moon will be a crescent shape sitting inside of Taurus the bull, which I can click on if I do so here. So we have one of the signs of the zodiac, a leftover winter time constellation, still visible even in the spring, at least the beginning of spring. And if we follow the moon through the rest of the week, you'll watch the moon kind of move east and head into different zodiac signs. So by Tuesday night, you'll see the moon will be in the Gemini twins. And we'll continue kind of moving ahead in time here. Eventually, the moon will then slide into a very, very dim constellation called Cancer the Crab. And then from there, the rest of the week, you'll see the moon move into the constellation Leo the Lion right here. And if you want to find Leo, a little trick here, you'll find that Leo has this sort of hook-like shape in it here. And there's another name for this. This is called the sickle of Leo. That's an asterism. Again, a shape not as formal as a constellation, but still noticeable in the sky and easy to spot. Asterisms are usually very bright. So this hook shape looks like kind of like a fishing hook too, right? But an asterism like this forms the head of Leo the lion. So this is the head, this is the body, and this is the tail of the lion. The tail, and I'll zoom in a little bit more to give you a better view, the tail is a right triangle of stars there. So throw in a bunch of imagination and you'll get a lion we call Leo. And so we have Leo there. Now, as we've been watching the moon move through the zodiac signs, it may make you wonder, why is it moving through zodiac constellations? What's going on here, right? Well, I can explain this by turning on something called the ecliptic line. So see that kind of reddish line I have turned on across the sky here? Yeah. That ecliptic line is the apparent path the sun makes through the stars. Of course, as you know, the sun doesn't move through the stars really. We are going around the sun. Earth is going around the sun. But as we do so, it looks like the sun is moving through the star field. And people noticed that a long time ago. And that path, different constellations were created. And those ones were the 12 signs of the zodiac. Zodiac means circle of animals, because these are circle of animals around the sky, except, there's one exception, Libra, which is, of course, the scales, right? But other than that, they're all animals. So that's where the word zodiac comes from. Anyway, so the sun seems to move through those stars. That's basically the plane of our solar system. So that means that the planets are along that line, okay? And the moon is too. Now, the moon is not perfectly in line with the Earth's orbit around the sun. If it was, then the moon would be right on this ecliptic line here, okay? But its orbit is tilted a little bit, and since it's tilted a little bit, it's a little bit off the ecliptic, but still pretty close. So the moon usually does move through the zodiac signs. That is a typical path the moon makes in the sky as it moves around the Earth in its own orbit. So it's kind of good to see that. So that explains kind of why a lot of things are moving in certain ways and where they're moving. The ecliptic line is a very important place in the sky. And it's like the word eclipse, right? So eclipses happen along this line. So very useful in astronomy. Anyway, so that's where that comes from. So we see the moon moving through the zodiac signs, going through Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, through the rest of this week. Now, real quick before I move on to just a different area of the sky, I just want to mention, and again, I'll go back to the beginning of the week here again is you still have a good opportunity to see these leftover winter stars, even though it's the springtime. I already showed you Taurus the Bull here, right, with the Pleiades star cluster along its back. Real quick, I'll just mention that here Orion's belt is still visible here, the 3 stars of the belt. I can turn on Orion the Hunter, one of the most famous constellations in our sky, and Orion's belt, draw a line towards the left or to the east here. That will lead you to the brightest star, Sirius, and Sirius is part of the Dog constellation, otherwise known as Canis Major. So those winter stars, still lovely in the west, really southwestern part of our sky. Now, we're going to move over to the east here, and I'm going to head into the morning hours. I haven't really been talking about that much lately, but it's worth going out in the early morning before sunrise because there's a really cool grouping of objects there. So let's speed up time, and we'll go through the rest of the night, at least for this week here. And if you remember from last week, I mentioned some really bright spring stars. This is Arcturus, and there's Spica rising out of the eastern part of the sky. We're in now after midnight and into 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I know a lot of people usually sleep at this time, but if you're up, you'll start to see summertime stars rise in this part of the sky towards the east here. But we're going to go to about 6, maybe just a little after 6 o'clock in the morning. And that's not too early. All right, depends on who you are, but not too early. And if you look in the east, really southeast, you'll find what looks like 3 really bright stars, but they're not going to twinkle. So I'll give you a clue what they are, right? So they're most likely will be planets, and that's what they are. These are 3 planets really close to each other. I mean, this is extraordinary. One of these planets, you might already know what it is because look at the color. It's kind of an orangish reddish color. Think about the red planet in the solar system, which of course is Mars. So here we have it saying Mars here. So we have the planet Mars, 4th planet from the sun, visible. Now what's really great is right next to it is the planet Saturn, the beautiful ringed planet, much farther than Mars is in our solar system from Earth, but they're going to look very close. So this is a conjunction of Saturn and Mars in our sky at the beginning of this week here. This is great. And not far from those 2 planets is the biggest planet in the solar system, Jupiter. So Jupiter will be out as well. So that's a wonderful conjunction going on there. Through the rest of this week, if you follow along, you'll see that the planets will sort of slide a little bit away from each other. Mars will move more to the east here. And as we do so by the weekend, you'll see that you'll have Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter kind of spread a little farther apart from each other, but still really close. Another area I'd like to take pictures of as well, to get pictures of all these planets close, is always a cool sight to see. So hopefully you get up in the morning and see this wonderful conjunction, especially early this week here. You'll find this going on. You got Mars and Saturn really close. So we got a lot of conjunctions this week. Early on, like I said, in the evening sky, we have Venus and the Pleiades star cluster going on there, and in the early morning with Saturn and Mars and even Jupiter nearby as well. And hopefully you can find some of those leftover winter constellations and even some new spring constellations like Leo. Always something to see in the sky, as you can clearly tell. But anyway, this is where I'll conclude this session here. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully this inspires you to get out and explore the night sky on your own or with your family. It's always a lot of fun. If you want to know any more about these types of programs here or find them, you can go to our website. Always check there for updates on various things we're doing. Also check our social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We're pretty active on those platforms as well. We're putting out some great content right now, so stay tuned. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Happy stargazing. Take care, and we'll see you again for another session of our Sky Tonight. Take care.